Hello then, bonjour, hi everyone. Solo effort on my part. Basically I would like to make a series of videos where I would recommend several French films, but not necessarily because like from a purely like cinematic perspective, but like specifically for people that would be interested in learning French, I know that I'm a pretty big world cinema fan. Watch a lot of Argentinian, Brazilian, Korean, Japanese films, and you end up like getting glimpse of like some specific national markers and references that you wouldn't necessarily get just by, let's say, studying the country or studying a language. So I think it's a worthwhile experience to actually interact with like intellectual properties from a specific place. So in my opinion it would be interesting to like pinpoint a couple of films that in my opinion represent France quite well. I have a list in mind and I'll try to deliver it to you like in a series of videos, like hopefully. So my first recommendation would be a film that's very straightforward, Paris, like made in 2008 by Cédric Klapisch. I picked this one because I think its approach to representing the city can be quite interesting. I'll develop it in a bit, but basically like the key elements, like you will not see a sort of postcard representation of a place, and that's what is, in my opinion, really sort of interesting to actually see the city as, let's say, a Parisian would. It's very much a film for people that know what Paris is like. So, I'll be really honest with you, I'm not a massive fan of the filmmaker, like Cédric Klapisch, mainly because he relies too much on a truly tired French trope, like a trope in a French cinema, which is you absolutely have to have like the characters like either sleeping around or like having an affair with no consequences whatsoever. It's very empty, and I have to admit it feels like it's almost mandatory to have this in French cinema to the point that it becomes tiring, sort of. Apart from that, I think that the film has enough like qualities to like be worth seeing even with this kind of limitation, in my opinion. So the first thing is like it's Cédric Klapisch is famous for making like film choral, choral as in like choir films, like it's the best way you can translate it. Which basically means that it's an ensemble of characters, and like you're following the lives of several characters at the same time, and sometimes intertwine, and like sometimes it's just basically they just evolve, like sort of live among each other, like you kind of following their following their stories and sort of big points where there might be a link or not. And as you can imagine, the main link here is Paris as like a city. And well, in this regard the cast is absolutely amazing. You have, let's say, if you want to ease yourself in French cinema, it's great because you will have Mélanie Laurent, who like started a career like for people that are really more into, let's say, blockbusters and Hollywood films. Like she starred in Inglourious Bastards in like by Tarantino. You have Juliette Binoche, amazing actress. She played a small role in The English Patient, and I think she played like one of the main roles in Chocolate with Johnny Depp, like in the 2000. But she played in so many other films, like my favorite film from her is Bleu by Christophe. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this, but it's a great Polish filmmaker who made like a trilogy of films, like French spoken films called Bleu Blanc Rouge. So she plays in Bleu. Like amazing actress. You have an actor that actually got famous through Untouchable, like Yavon Merci, and Sorry, I'm gonna check my notes. But basically, he appeared in many other films. Like another one that is sort of interesting would be Ne le dis à personne, which is another film that I would recommend. It's very good. And a film that you could eventually watch that is very, very similar to Paris, let's face it, called Les Petits Mouchoirs, which is really alright as a viewing experience. So his name was François Cluzet, yeah, that's it. So, my two favorites in there are less famous abroad, but you have a man that started as kind of a stand-up comedian, if I'm not mistaken, and he became an absolutely amazing filmmaker. Like, he made Au revoir là-haut, which is one of my like favorite films like that was released in the past 10 years. Albert Dupontel. So Albert Dupontel is absolutely great in this. He manages to be at the same time kind of rough, poetic, like moving and touching. He's playing an open air market vendor, which is like really a typical thing, like someone selling like fruits and vegetables in a marché. You know, that's a very French thing. And it's a great performance. In my humble opinion, though, like the main highlights of the film, like really the key performance in this film, but I'm biased, I really like this actor, is by Fabrice Lucchini. So he got famous because he's self-taught in like French classic literature and poetry, and his delivery is just like sounds like honey to my ears. It's just amazing. It's very much like, it's what we would call langage précieux, like langage précieux, which is almost like akin to theater. It just sounds amazing. I suppose that would be the equivalent of a posh English accent, like in French, and it's just great. And in this film, he reads a poem by Baudelaire, a really beautiful poem, like one of his lesser known, called like À celle qui est trop belle, like to the one who was too beautiful. And while there's the following the character of Mélanie Laurent in Paris, and like it's really one of the highlights of the film. It's really quite beautiful. So. And as you can imagine, one of the key elements that's really making the film like worth watching are the dialogues. They're just like fast, snappy, witty. Like very often they're witty, sometimes moving, and they are interesting because they're using a lot of, at the same time, French conventions and some play with the structure. Like, you know, like French is very much like a grammar-based language, very important for us. So you would have, let's say, the character selling fruits and vegetables, going, so a lady wants to buy like salads, and he goes like, oh, les salades, vous savez, les salades, elles sont comme vous ce matin, elles sont pas très belles, because the lady has like very messy hair, and like she answers like half amused, half annoyed, like, merci. So that's some interaction that is really quite, let's say, quite typical of I suppose you could link it to kind of like British humor, like very dry, very much like you clearly feel that the person is vexed, but at the same time amused by the kind of bluntness of like the way it's delivered. So it's absolutely amazing. So again, like Juliette Binoche and Dupontel, they're both great. You have Fabrice Lucchini as kind of a funny element, like goes, vous savez, dans la recherche, on cherche surtout à joindre les deux bouts. So he knows, like, when you're working and as someone like as a not necessarily a scientist, but like someone working in the arts of like research, yeah. Like you're mainly trying to make ends meet, and I thought that bit is great, like the repetition with like recherche, like that's a really cool that's a cool banter in my opinion. And you have another one that I think is very, very, very French, with a younger brother who has a heart condition and likely not to make it. We don't know at the end of the film. and his sister, who's a social worker. So the brother goes and basically they're discussing how to announce this to the sisters, sons and daughters, her kids. And the younger brother is really straightforward. It's okay, faut leur dire que je vais crever, which means I'm gonna die, but a pretty ugly word for it. And the sister goes, non, il faut leur dire que tu t'es arrêté parce que tu as faibli, parce que tu as besoin de reprendre des forces pour pouvoir affronter plus tard, affronter les épreuves, and, which is a really kind of typical way of trying to dull the bluntness of what is going on. The character is very likely to die, and she's really trying almost to herself, but using some very administrative vocabulary, and the brother's non, c'est des conneries ça, il faut leur dire, faut être cash. And just this switch in register is really fun. It's this play on different register languages is really you really get some kind of shift of tone that's quite typical to French, in my humble opinion. So another aspect that's really making it worthwhile is you will see Paris. It's well represented, but not necessarily in the way that you used to. One of the biggest quality that I will give to Cédric Klapisch is he is capable through his techniques of filmmaking of putting you in the shoes of the person, what the person's going through. For example, his most famous film is called L'Auberge Espagnole, and it's about a Erasmus student going to Barcelona. And you really see the city as someone who is discovering it. You're kind of a bit lost, and you will see your typical local monuments, but really as a tourist, sort of you're really always focusing on the individual rather than the buildings, and of course lots of street views and things like that. For Paris, he does the exact same technique in that you really see the city through the eyes of a Parisian, like I said before. While you have a couple of really nice shots at the very beginning, then very quickly right away you will have some the camera is gonna go extremely fast. You will see some your typical monuments. You will see the Eiffel Tower. You will see it. You pass in front of the Moulin Rouge. You have the big Haussmannian Boulevard, the big buildings, but you don't really linger on them. You just everything is going really fast, some frantic camera shots of Paris, and it continues throughout the film. The one thing that you will notice is the camera calms down when people are inside, but usually outside in Paris, everybody is moving. You get really this feeling of movement in it. And the interesting bit is it's almost a game. If you know the city, kind of determine where the characters are. For example, Mélanie Laurent at some point is crossing the Jardin des Tuileries, which is right next to a beautiful Parisian palace, very luxurious, and it's a square, and extremely famous square, really beautiful. But you barely it's a bit difficult to recognize it, and if you haven't traveled to Paris, if you haven't lived there for a while, you probably will miss it. It's kind of a fun game. It's almost tongue in cheek. So you have the character crossing this place. Same thing. I think there's the Rue de Rivoli, which is also a big boulevard. The very famous street, and you have a character riding a motorbike, which is also a very typical Parisian thing. I don't know if people know that, but it's extremely difficult to move around Paris, and with it's much easier to actually ride a motorbike than actually drive with a car. So they got that right with the film. Like people, like you'll see a lot of motorbikes as opposed to cars. And she's the character is driving near the Bord de Seine, which is a really famous, a beautiful kind of path. Now it's a bit different. Like when the film was shot, people could still drive. It was still cars were still passing near the Seine, which is the big river that's cutting Paris in half. Now actually it's a pedestrian path, so that's really worth seeing if you ever go to Paris. And so, but you barely linger on it. It's really kind of fun. And another thing that is really quite interesting, so I know this because apparently my granddad worked there, is the Marché de Rungis. So this is a Parisian suburb, nearby, which has an absolutely massive open air, it's a sort of a central hub for professionals selling products like groceries, fruits, vegetables, meat, fish, eggs, cheese, of course, and it's really all of really the central hub. It's one of the biggest structure in France when it comes to kind of professional vendors, and that's how you end up having marché, the open air market vendors, which is really your typical French site, actually this place is again somewhere where you need trucks to move to move the merchandise, or to move the goods, and people are walking and moving there. It's also very much you really have this notion of when you're outside you're moving, and it's only through the brother character who's actually sick and has to stay indoors, can't really go out or anything, that you will be able to have nicer shots of Paris with all your classic and traditional views on the Eiffel Tower and the Haussmann Boulevard, and especially the Toit de Paris. The Parisian roofs are very famous for that. It's really quite beautiful. And so it's really quite interesting to have this perspective of a Parisian. They even make fun of the cliches once or twice, characters someone's who's playing the accordion is introduced as a joke, to make it more to make it to make the scene seem like a complete cliche of on purpose. And you have a couple in the Sacré-Cœur saying, so we'll just do the tours then, staying here, as a kind of a funny, as if it's extremely funny to be there, a living cliche or something, which is quite fun to put that in your film. It's really the way a Parisian would behave. And finally, it is very well done in the fact that the film knew very well what activities are deemed really specific to at the same time France and Paris, and specifically so once again the open air vendor, it's a big part of the film. Open air market vendors with fruits and vegetables, it's a very common thing for people to go and it is likely that the place where they're selling these, it's called Marché d'Aligre. I'm not certain. I hope I'm saying that well. I guess I actually haven't been in Paris in ages, so sorry about that. There is, of course, your the boulangerie. That cliche is perfectly true. There are plenty of cliches that drive me nuts about French people, but the fact that we're stuffing ourselves with bread is true. You absolutely need to buy French bread every day or something, which is a baguette every day, which is a bit too much in my opinion, but that's kind of fun. You have like the street life, like with the you have a couple of shots on the like a fashion show, but also like your typical kind of like Parisian parties at nights, and it's really a specific mood that is really quite well transcribed. And oh yeah, of course, I almost forgot the cafe, which is really the main thing, and like one of the main elements in cafe. Like, first thing I think about Paris is like just sitting somewhere, like having a rude waiter asking you like after 20 minutes what you want. So like the ultimate Parisian experience. So that's also very well transcribed. And yeah, this notion that Paris est une fête, like people were back when it wasn't like a work of science fiction, like for people to meet and party. So in this way, it's kind of like the film is a gentle reminder of like easier times in this regard. So anyways, I hope this recommendation was useful. Like, feel free to tell me your opinion if what I said was helpful. Hopefully I'll think of like other films that could pique your interest and give like interesting perspective on France, be it like one way or another, be it like the language or like the like some historical events. So I'll think of something. And yeah, so like, subscribe, comment, share, all that jazz, and see you in the next one. Bye.